All right, today we're going to talk about exponent rules, and I am writing these notes on March 27th of 2020. So to start out, I'm just going to remind you of the rules of exponents that you hopefully have learned before, but just in case you haven't, we're just going to review them. So first, I'm going to remind you that if we multiply our x's, for example, if I have x to the third power times x to the fifth power, if we're multiplying the x's, we add the exponents. So this would become x to the 3 plus 5, or in other words, x to the 8th. Now, let's say I was dividing that problem. Instead, I had x to the 5th divided by x to the 3rd. Remember that when we divide, we subtract the exponents. So this becomes x to the 5 minus 3, or in other words, x to the 2nd. Our next possibility is we could have a power to a power. For example, I might give you x to the 5th power to the 3rd power. Remember that when you have a power going to a power, that's when we multiply those exponents. So this becomes x to the 5 times 3 power, or in other words, x to the 15th power. Last but not least, remember that when you have a negative exponent, it moves to the other side of the fraction. So for example, if I have x to the negative 3rd power, well, right now that's on top of the fraction, so it's going to move to the bottom of the fraction and become 1 over x to the 3rd power. If it starts out on the bottom, for example, maybe I have 1 over x to the negative 3rd power, well, since it's negative on the bottom of the fraction, it's going to move up to the top and become x to the positive 3rd power. Last but not least, I'm going to remind you that anytime you take anything to the 0 power, it equals 1. So keeping these exponent rules in mind, let's go ahead and do a few examples of some problems you're going to see on your assignment. So for example 1, let's say that I give you the problem 3x to the 7th power times 2x to the 5th power. Now notice that when we solve this problem, we have these front numbers 3 and 2. These are just normal numbers, so I can go ahead and just multiply them together. 3 times 2 is 6. Then I can see that I'm multiplying the x's, and when I multiply x's, I remember that I add the exponents. 7 plus 5, which is 12. So I get 6x to the 12th as my final answer. For our second example, let's say that I give you a problem that looks something like this. We have 2x, y to the 3rd, all going to the 4th power. Now, when I do this, I can distribute out this exponent as long as there's no addition or subtraction inside the parentheses. If there is addition or subtraction, you have to write it out multiple times and distribute. But here, since there's not, I can just go ahead and distribute my 4th power. So if my 4th power hits the 2, it will become 2 to the 4th power. Then it will hit the x and give me x to the 4th power. And then it hits this y to the 3rd, and notice that we have y to the 3rd to the 4th, y to a power to a power. Remember that when you have a power to a power, you multiply, and 3 times 4 is 12. Now it's acceptable to leave the answer in this form, but if you want to multiply out that 2 to the 4th power, you are welcome to do so. 2 to the 4th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which, if you care to multiply that out, gives you 16. So this becomes 16 x to the 4th, y to the 12th. I will accept the answer in either of these two forms. For our last example, let's say that I give you a problem that looks like this. Let's say that you have 4x to the 5th, y to the 3rd, over 12x to the 2nd, y to the 8th. Now, if you have a problem like this, you're going to want to simplify it piece by piece. So I'm going to start by looking at this front fraction, 4/12. Now 4/12 is a fraction that will simplify down. I know that I can simplify it to 1/3 if I just divide the 4 and the 12 both by 4. That will give me the 1/3. Once I've done that, next I'm going to look at the x's. Now remember that when we divide, we subtract our exponents. Since I have more x's here on top than I do on the bottom, I know that in my answer, the x's will be on top. Then I just have to subtract my exponents. 5 minus 2 is 3. Last but not least, let's look at the y's. So in this case, I notice that I have more y's on the bottom of the fraction than I do on top. So in my answer, the y's will end up on the bottom. Then I just subtract the exponents. 8 minus 3 is 5. I have now simplified this fraction down as far as it can go, and this is my final answer. So that's your review of exponents. Go ahead and try the front side of this assignment. When you move on to the back side, you can go ahead and watch the next video that goes with this assignment.